Ever wonder why there are so many rules? I mean, stop at a red light, be quiet in the library, finish your homework. It feels like they're everywhere. But get this, without rules, our world would be complete chaos. So, let's dive in and figure out why rules are actually pretty important, what a government really is, and what all of it has to do with you.
Just take a look at these two pictures. On the left, you've got traffic lights, crosswalks. Everything looks pretty organized. On the right, well, it's a total mess. So which street would you rather cross? The one on the left, right? Of course, that's because rules, like traffic laws, create order and keep us safe. Without them, just getting to the other side of the road would be a crazy adventure.
And it's not just about traffic, you know. Think about it. You have rules at home, right? Like cleaning your room. And you definitely have rules at school, like raising your hand before you speak. All these rules are really just agreements we all make to help things run smoothly so we're not all bumping into each other.
Okay, so when we need rules for a whole town or an entire country, not just one family or school, who's in charge of making them? Well, that's where this big idea of government comes in. You can think of them as the official rule makers for everybody.
First, let's get this big word out of the way. Governance. It sounds super complicated, but it's not. Imagine our whole country is like a giant ship. Governance is just the act of steering that ship. It's the whole process of making decisions and creating rules to make sure we all get where we're going safely.
So if governance is the act of steering, then the government is the captain and the crew. They're the actual group of people who are at the wheel. They're the ones making the big rules, which we call laws, and making sure we all follow them.
And you actually see the government in action all the time, probably without even realizing it. A police officer helping with traffic, a firefighter putting out a blaze, even a teacher in a public school. These are all real-world examples of the government working to keep us safe and provide services.
All right, so how does this whole giant system actually work? It can seem pretty confusing, but we can break it all down into two really simple ideas. The government has three main jobs, and it comes in three different sizes. Let's start with the jobs.
Let's use a modern example, like cybercrime. So say somebody steals money online. First, you have a group called the legislature. Their job is to make the law that says, hey, you can't do that. Second, you have the executive branch. This includes the police, and their job is to enforce that law by catching the person who broke it. And third, you have the judiciary. That's the court system, and they judge the case and decide on a fair punishment. So you've got make, enforce, and judge. Those are the three big jobs.
Now, the reason we keep these three jobs separate is super important. It's called the separation of powers. It creates this awesome system of checks and balances where each part of the government can keep an eye on the other parts. This way, no single group can become too powerful and things stay fair for everyone.
Now, what about those three sizes I mentioned? Well, take a look at this pyramid. Government works on three different levels. Way down at the bottom, you have your local government for your town or village. Then in the middle, there's the state government. And right at the top, you have the central government for the whole country.
Let's use a flood to see how this works. If just one street in your neighborhood floods, the local government can probably handle it. But what if the flood covers several towns? That's a bigger problem, so the state government steps in. And if the entire region is underwater, well, that's a huge disaster, and the central government sends in the biggest help, like the army. See? Each level tackles the problem that fits its size.
So we have all these rule makers with different jobs at different levels, but in a country like India, who actually gives them the power to do all this stuff? The answer might surprise you. It's you. It's all of us. And that brings us to maybe the most important idea of all: democracy.
The word democracy actually comes from two old Greek words, demos, which means people, and kratos, which means rule or power. So when you put them together, democracy literally means the rule of the people. It's a system where, at the end of the day, the citizens hold the real power.
So how exactly do the people rule? Okay, imagine your class is deciding where to go for a picnic. If every single student in the class gets a vote on the location, that's called a direct democracy. But what if it's easier to just elect one class representative to go talk to the principal for the whole class? That's a representative democracy. You choose someone to represent you.
Now, could you imagine almost 1 billion voters in India trying to vote on every single little law? It would be impossible. It would be total chaos. That's why big countries like India use a representative democracy.
We vote in elections to choose people who will go and represent our ideas and make laws for us.
And just how big are we talking? Well, get this. In 2024, there were about 970 million eligible voters in India. Let that sink in. 970 million. That makes it the largest democracy on the entire planet. It's a massive, incredible exercise in people power.
Okay, wow. We've gone from a chaotic street all the way to the world's biggest democracy. So let's bring it all back home and talk about why any of this really truly matters to you.
So let's wrap it up. Here's the big picture. We need rules so our world isn't a crazy mess. We create a government to make and manage those rules. We give it 3 main jobs and 3 different sizes to work with. But the most important piece of the whole puzzle, the foundation holding it all up, is us. In a democracy, the people hold the real power.
And that brings me to a final thought for you. You know, it's easy to think of rules as things that just stop us from doing what we want. But really, they're there to help us all live together a little bit better. So just take a second and think about it. What's one rule in your life, maybe at home, at school, or in your town, that you're actually kind of thankful for today?